Welcome to the race condition tutorial. First, locate the 4 brown back start cards. From left to right, arrange the next instruction pointer arrow. The top instruction card with the text I equals 1 and the 2 variable counter cards. One for variable x and the other is for I. Initialize each variable to 0 by placing a marker on 0. Deal 4 cards to player 1, also known as negative. Player 2, known as positive, receives 5 cards.
Player 1's goal is to decrease x until it reaches -5. He looks at his 4 cards. He cannot use the delete card, but he can play instruction cards. He uses his 2 actions to add 2 instructions to the program. At the end of each player's turn, the next instruction must execute and the pointer must advance. In this case, I is set to 1 and the pointer slides down.
Player 2's goal is to increase x until it reaches +5. Looking at her hand of 5 cards, she considers using her delete card to remove an instruction, but instead opts to use her 2 actions to construct a while loop. Then the next instruction executes I is set to -I, which is -1, and the next instruction pointer advances.
Player 1 uses his first action to draw a card, which turns out not to be a particularly useful card. He uses his second action to play a delete card and delete a while instruction. The x equals x minus I card cannot be indented beneath the x equals x plus I card, so after the deletion the indentation is corrected. The next instruction then executes. I, which is negative, is added to x, and the pointer moves down.
Player 2 examines her 3 remaining cards. She opts to use her first action to draw a new card, and not seeing an immediate use for the new card, uses her second action to draw another card. Then the next instruction executes. I is subtracted from x, bringing x back to 0 since I is negative. The next instruction pointer advances to the empty space below the last instruction.
Player 1 uses his first action to draw a card, which turns out to be a useful card. He uses his second action to play that card into the empty space pointed to by the next instruction pointer. The next instruction then executes, and x is set to x plus I, changing its value from 0 to -1. The next instruction pointer again advances to the space beneath the program.
Player 2 uses her 2 actions to add instruction cards, creating another while loop. Then the next instruction executes, which is the while instruction. Because I is greater than -2, the next instruction pointer enters the while loop.
Player 1 uses his first action to draw a card. He then decides to use his second action to draw another card. The next instruction then executes. I is incremented from -1 to 0, and the pointer proceeds back to the while instruction.
Player 2 chooses to use the move card, which includes both of her actions. She slides the x equals x plus I card to the bottom of the program and chooses to indent it inside the while loop. The cards below the gap now slide up to close the gap, including the next pointer, which continues to point to the same card. The while instruction then executes, and the next instruction pointer moves into the body of the loop.
Player 1 uses his first action to draw a card. He then decides that his best course of action is to use an insert card to insert an if instruction. Because an if requires that the instruction beneath it be indented to the right of it, the card below is moved to the right. The next instruction then executes. I is incremented from 0 to 1, and the pointer proceeds to the if instruction.
Player 2 uses her first action to add an x equals x plus I instruction from her hand to the program. She uses her second action to advance the pointer, executing the if instruction and skipping the if block. Then the next instruction executes, I is added to X, bringing it to 0, and the next pointer moves back to the while instruction.
Player 1 uses his first action to draw a card. His hand now contains 5 cards, so he cannot draw any more cards. Instead, he uses his second action to discard a card. The next instruction then executes. I is greater than -2, so the pointer enters the while loop.
Player 2 uses her first action to play her only remaining card, a delete card, which she uses to delete the if instruction. Because the following card can no longer be more indented than its predecessor, it must be slid to the left. She uses her second action to advance the pointer, which increments the value of I to 2. Then the x equals x plus I instruction executes, setting the value of x to 2.
Player 1 uses his first action to draw a card. It turns out to be a powerful card, but it requires 2 actions, so he cannot play the card this turn. He uses his second action to discard a card. The next instruction then executes. I is added to X, changing the value of X from 2 to 4. The pointer proceeds back to the while instruction.
Player 2 has no cards left in her hand. She uses her first action to advance the pointer. Because I is greater than -2, the pointer enters the while loop. She uses her second action to advance the pointer. I is incremented by 1, setting its value to 3. Lastly, the next instruction executes. I is added to X, and X's value now exceeds 5. Player 2 wins. We hope you enjoyed learning how to play Race Condition. Visit us on the web at multinationalgames.com for more info.